So NBA basketball is back next week with some preseason games, and I'm really excited for it, mainly because I haven't seen my Hawks play in 9 months, and they're supposed to actually be decent now. But hey, everyone's got their reasons. But I figured since free agency is basically over and all the teams are pretty much going to stay as they are for now, why not do the conference standings prediction? Obviously, we're starting off with the Eastern Conference. It's in the title. But before we start, I will say there are plenty of teams that you could put higher or lower. This is just my opinion. But these are definitely not going to be 100% correct if you look at them at the end of the year. But first in the East for me is the Bucks, which I feel like is the most obvious pick in the entire league. They still have Budenholzer as well as Giannis, Middleton, Lopez, adding Drew. They're going to be the Bucks and win a million regular season games. What matters is how different they are in the playoffs. So, not much to talk about here. Sorry, Bucks fans. The 2 seed is where things start to get interesting, because I feel like you could have several different teams here. I personally have the Celtics almost by default. They let Wanamaker go and replaced him with Jeff Teague. Hopefully he looks better than he has in recent years for them, because with Kemba out to start the season, they'll definitely need decent play from him. They still have the Jalen, Smart, Tatum core, and that is going to win them plenty of games. They also drafted Aaron Naismith and have Robert Williams, Grant Williams, and Romeo Langford in terms of young pieces. We'll see if Kemba comes back healthy and how that affects them. But due to injuries and other concerns on other teams, I think that they'll be the 2 seed. The 3 seed is where I have the Nets, who could definitely end up being the 2 seed if things go well. Maybe even the 1 seed. We'll see about that. But I'm assuming things aren't going to go perfectly. KD's coming off an Achilles injury, and Kyrie seems to be injured all the time. We saw this same team without KD and some of Kyrie get the 7th seed, so I assume 75% of Kevin Durant and some Kyrie will get them up to the 3 seed. They still have Dinwiddie, LeVert, Allen, Joe Harris, a bunch of solid guys who may or may not be traded this season, so all that gets them to the 3rd seed, possibly higher or lower depending on injuries. Right below them, I have the Heat, who are coming off of a finals appearance and arguably have gotten better. They may have lost Jay Crowder, but they retained Dragic and added Avery Bradley and Mo Harkless. Hopefully Bam, Hero, and Nunn can take some steps forward and allow them to improve upon that finals appearance, which I don't think is a fluke, but it'll definitely be hard to get back. Either way, they have Jimmy Butler and a really solid core, so I think they'll be fine. At the 5th seed, I have the 76ers, who did a good job cleaning up their mess this offseason from last offseason. They offloaded Horford and got Danny Green and Seth Curry, which is definitely some much-needed shooting. Their starting lineup looks like Simmons, Curry or Green, Thibault, Tobias Harris, and Embiid. At least that's what I'm assuming. I'm sure it could be different. Despite the solid offseason moves, though, I still have them at the 5 seed because this whole team is just a huge question mark. The Simmons and Embiid fit is still weird, and despite adding Green and Curry, the shooting still isn't great unless you decide to start both of them. Either way, I think they'll be a good team this year. We'll just have to see how it plays out. Next are the Raptors, who I have at the 6th seed, and it's very sad. They lost Ibaka and Gasol, and now are going to play Aaron Baines and Chris Boucher as their full-time center rotation. Now, there is no Aaron Baines slander here. He's a really, really solid center, but I don't think that rotation is going to do them justice with no real superstar. Like you had the Warriors do it with Steph and Clay, and you had the Lakers do it with LeBron and AD. So I do think they're going to slip a bit in the standings this year, and I have them at the 6th seed. At 7, there are the Pacers, who are just a solid all-around team with some questions. Will Oladipo be good again? Does he even want to be there? They also still have that Sabonis-Turner front court, and I definitely think they need to pick a direction on that one, finally. But they still have Brogdon, TJ Warren, Aaron and Justin Holiday. They just have a solid overall team. And that, for me, puts them at the 7th seed. Not a whole lot to say here. But the 8 through 10 seed is where things get very interesting. And at number 8, I have the Washington Wizards. Now, if you don't know, I am a Hawks fan, so no, it was hard for me to acknowledge that the Hawks could indeed not make the playoffs again this year, but we'll talk about them more later. I don't think the Wizards are anywhere close to a playoff lock because they also have a lot of question marks on their team. The spacing is one of them, considering they have 2 non-shooters in the starting lineup if they start Denny. Thomas Bryant is alright, so that leaves 2 actual shooters around Russell Westbrook and Beal. The Westbrook fit is another question. He most definitely will take shots away from Beal and have his erratic plays every game, but he is better and healthier than John Wall, so I think barring injuries they'll probably be a playoff team, but they're definitely not a lock. Right below the Wizards are my Hawks at the 9 seed, and now I get to explain why I put them here. I think they have too much riding on progression from their young players to put them in the playoffs at this point. Trae Young is going to be amazing. He's going to average his 28 and 10, and they did acquire Bogdanovic and Gallinari as well as Rondo and Dunn, but they're relying heavily on progression from Hunter, Reddish, Herter, Okongwu, and even John Collins. Their starting lineup is probably Trae, Bogdan, Hunter, Collins, and Capella. That leaves a bench unit of Dunn/Rondo, Herter, Reddish, Gallo, and Okongwu. Really, really solid team. But as I said, they're relying too much on progression from the young guys. They definitely have potential to make it, and I hope they do, but this is where I have them for now until further notice. Next up are the pretty straightforward teams, starting off with the Hornets at number 10. They drafted LaMelo Ball and also paid Gordon Hayward $120 million this offseason. I mean, as good as a player as Hayward is, I'm just not sure what they're expecting from the signing. The rest of the roster is kind of meh. The starting lineup is probably LaMelo, Terry Rozier, Malik Monk maybe, Hayward, PJ Washington, and Cody Zeller. I cannot put this team higher than the 10 seed. I just can't. I will give them credit. They weren't terrible on either side of the ball last year, and adding Hayward makes them better, but I just don't see how this team is any better than any of the ones that I listed above. So, I'm sorry, Hornets fans. The Magic, believe it or not, are below the Hornets at number 11, who added Cole Anthony and lost Jonathan Isaac due to injury, so it looks like another year of the Magic that's terrible on offense and really good on defense. And because the Hornets will probably be decent or better on both sides of the ball, I put them above the Magic. Maybe Cole Anthony surprises me, maybe Terrence Ross doesn't suck, but honestly I don't think the Magic will be that good this season. Then there's the rest of the teams, the bottom of the Eastern Conference. The Bulls are at number 12, and they added to their team by subtracting Jim Boylan. They also drafted Patrick Williams and signed Garrett Temple. That's the offseason. That's what they did. Hopefully having Donovan makes them better team instantly, but unless there's some serious progression from one of these guys or all of these guys on the roster, I don't think this team is going to be very good at all. Below them are the Detroit Pistons, who look like an NBA player thrift store right now. They have an overpaid 3-and-D player, a solid center, a pretty decent point guard in Derrick Rose, and an aging star in Blake Griffin. So yeah, they have a bunch of NBA players on the roster, and that's probably the most positive thing that you can say about them. I do like Killian Hayes a lot, though. I hope he's good. But then there's the Cavs at number 14, who got my guy Okoro in the draft, but still don't have a lot of it else. KPJ is nice, Sexton is a decent scorer, but a really one-dimensional player. Then they have Love and Drummond. I don't really think this team is much of anything. Maybe they have someone emerge this season, but really that's it for them. Then there's number 15, and we have the Knicks. They didn't do anything stupid this offseason, which is good. They just need to build on that by doing smart things this season and next offseason. But they definitely are on the right track. Yes, that's how low the bar was for them. They have several flippable NBA players, so maybe that happens. Not a whole lot to say about them. They're probably going to be the worst team in the East. But yeah, it's my Eastern Conference standings prediction, and the West one will follow at some point. But if you made it this far and you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. If you didn't like it, leave a dislike. And y'all, have a good one.